Besides being known as the City of Lights, Paris is considered the capital of fashion. So it's no real surprise that one of the world's biggest fashion houses is helping sponsor these games. LVMH Group, the owners of such brands as Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, Dior, is one of the Olympics' biggest sponsors. They have poured in some $166 million in sponsorships. Now, overall, companies are going to give more than $1 billion as sponsors for the Games, about 60% more than what came in the Tokyo Olympics back in 2021. Joining us to offer his insight on the branding and marketing surrounding the Olympic Games, John Furguson, the owner and creative director of BN Branding. John, thanks very much. Firstly, did you get a chance to see the opening ceremonies?
I did, yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, the ceremonies were good. It's always great to kick off another Olympic Games. I love them all. I love the Winter Games. I love the Summer Games. So
Okay.
yeah, happy to see.
Okay, now what about brands like Delta and Coca-Cola? They've shifted their marketing with the rise of influencers and social media. How has that affected things?
Yeah, when it comes to the Olympics, the big brands are certainly going to be able to leverage their exposure through influencers, especially with these athlete influencers these days. The athletes are getting some really big following on TikTok and Twitter and all the other social media platforms. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that'll be great for the big brands. It's really a dynamic deal that's going on with the influencers and the athletes.
And then, yeah, let's talk a bit more about that, such as USA Rugby star Ilona Mayer, did I get that last name right, boosting company revenues at the Olympics.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. I think that look, the fact is that the Olympics are probably the world's most desirable brand affiliation.
Really?
So it doesn't matter if it's a luxury brand or an influencer or a Hollywood star. Everybody wants to be affiliated with the Olympic Games.
Okay, so does global Olympic exposure benefit only the large brands like Nike and Lululemon, or can it help launch smaller companies too? How about luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, Dior? We talked about that massive dumping of cash into this.
Yeah. I mean, it takes big money to play in the Olympic Games in the sponsorship arena, for sure. I mean, Toyota spent $835 million back in 2015 when they signed an 8-year deal. So it's super costly, but there are ways to leverage the games and get some exposure without being one of the top sponsors.
Okay, let's talk about Nike and Adidas. A certain degree of buzz that they're trying to regain relevancy through this Olympic exposure. And you talked about other ways that companies can get out there. I covered the 2002 Games in Salt Lake City. And back then, guerrilla advertising became a huge thing because snowboarding was the new hot thing. And Quicksilver and a bunch of companies like that didn't have the kind of money, their boarders would show up at news conferences wearing the hats, and it really angered the sponsors of those games.
Yeah, you have to play by the rules when you're at the Olympics, but there are a lot of ways that companies like Nike get a ton of exposure without being a key sponsor. It really is. It comes back down to who's wearing the shoes, who's got the shoes on their feet. That's how Nike started out, by getting athletes to wear their shoes at the Olympic Games.
Right. But think back to the Winter Games not terribly long ago when Under Armour was going to design the speed skater suits. And that was a fiasco. The speed skaters were supposed to sweep everything, and they just didn't. And a lot of blame went on the design of those suits. Was that fair?
Yeah, the uniforms are always a little bit of a touchy subject, I guess. This year there's been a little bit of controversy around some swimsuits, I believe, too, from Nike. So whether it's fair to say that, the Under Armour uniforms cost us some time, I don't know. I think that's going a little too far.
Well, it certainly didn't help Under Armour coming out of that. But now with the global sports sponsorship market expected to grow to some $109 billion by 2030, where do the Olympics figure into this?
Some people are saying that the Olympics are losing relevance, especially with younger audiences. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think that social media is going to feed a lot of exposure into the Olympic broadcast this year. You know, people will get little tweets and they'll get stuff on TikTok about the Olympics, which will, you know, hopefully help push viewership. So I just see it being, it's never going to go away. It's always going to be, you know, the hottest ticket in town as far as sports marketing affiliations are concerned.
Yeah, and there's going to be that one underdog that emerges from these games, and everybody's going to be talking about that and want to wear the outfit or the shoes or whatever that athlete does. We see that year in and year out. Now, you talked about the opening ceremony just a bit ago. I want to get you to weigh in on this. What was your favorite outfit? What kind of stood out from the opening ceremony looks? Because again, I go back to 2002 and remember the little beanies that Roots made for the U.S. Everybody wanted one of those beanies the next day, and Roots could have charged a fortune for them and got them.
Right. Yeah. I can't really speak to the fashion side of things. I mean, it's Paris. They're going to put their own French fashion spin on everything. It was impressive. It was an impressive opening ceremonies, and I think it was perfect. It was perfect brand affiliation for Paris.
Yeah, and you know what? The river got off to, it's going to be one of the stars, and it got off to a good start today. So let's see how it handles the Olympics in the coming days, weeks ahead. John, thank you so much for your insight. We certainly appreciate it, and hope to chat with you again. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.